Donald Trump addressing veterans with a speech and a Q&A session in Virginia. He touched on cybersecurity, the shrinking size of the military, and health problems facing men and women who have served our country. He did not offer any comment, however, on a report that shows that he lost nearly $1 billion in 1995. Senior national correspondent John Roberts is live in Pueblo, Colorado, where Trump is campaigning later today. John, news just breaking minutes ago about the Trump Foundation. Tell us about that.
Good afternoon to you, Melissa. Yeah, he's got two events here in the Centennial State a little bit later on today. So far today, he has not commented on the tax return issue, though Hillary Clinton commented on it quite a bit, as you saw in that event that she just hit. The Trump Foundation. New York Attorney General Eric Schneiderman, who we should point out is both a Democrat and a supporter of Hillary Clinton, has been investigating the Trump Foundation, and within the last hour issued a cease and desist order to the officers of the Trump Foundation, telling them to stop raising money because, according to Schneiderman, the Trump Foundation lacks the appropriate certification to be collecting monies from the general public in the state of New York City in excess of $25,000 per year. We haven't heard anything from Donald Trump on this just yet, but we did get a statement from the campaign just moments ago. Hope Hicks, the Trump spokesman, saying, quote, "While we remain very concerned about the political motives behind AG Schneiderman's investigation, the Trump Foundation nevertheless intends to cooperate fully with the investigation. Because this is an ongoing legal matter, the Trump Foundation will not comment further at this time." Donald Trump, as you can imagine, Melissa, eager to kind of turn around the narrative from what, for all intents and purposes, was a pretty horrible week for the campaign last week, but still running up against these roadblocks that the Clinton campaign and people who are aligned with the Clinton campaign keep throwing in his way. Melissa?
Yeah, absolutely. And polls showing that Trump is potentially facing some pretty big problems in Colorado.
Yeah, he is. A new Monmouth poll came out just a short time ago, shows that Donald Trump is trailing Hillary Clinton by 11 points in the Centennial State. She has got 49% to his 38%. Gary Johnson, the Libertarian, who polls pretty well here in Colorado, is at 7 points. Now, if you take a look back at July, which was the last Monmouth poll in the state of Colorado, those margins are narrower. She was leading by 13 points back in July, but when you compare it to recent polls that were taken in the states that show the race even up, or Trump even ahead, it would appear that Hillary Clinton has reestablished a lead. What's Donald Trump doing to try to counter this? He's going to be hitting Hillary Clinton later on today on how she and her husband made money after leaving the White House, essentially saying that they were selling access in return for big speaking fees, millions of dollars of which came from big Wall Street banks. And at a veterans event earlier today in Herndon, Virginia, where Donald Trump was talking about cybersecurity, basically saying Hillary Clinton has no credibility on that issue. Listen to what he said.
Hillary Clinton's only experience in cybersecurity involves her criminal scheme to violate federal law, engineering a massive cover-up, and putting the entire nation in harm's way.
But at the same time, Trump taking some heat in the last hour over comments that he made at that event when asked about post-traumatic stress disorder. He said that people in the room who are strong were able to deal with what they saw during war, but others aren't particularly able to deal with it. That was seen by some people, and many of them in the Hillary Clinton campaign, as Trump saying that only weak people suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. The campaign released a statement about that shortly ago, Melissa, in which they said that Trump's comments were taken completely out of context. So that's something to watch this afternoon as well to see how that develops.
Boy,
Melissa?
That is a lot of back and forth. I'm glad you're out there staying on top of it for us. Thank you for that. WikiLeaks
Thanks,
founder Julian Assange may be backing down, another wild card in this race. After promising his own October surprise about Hillary Clinton, WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange is now maybe dialing back the claims he could potentially shake up the presidential race. Why he did it, what evidence he may have, we'll check in on that. So he he's been hinting at an October surprise for a long time, a scoop that could shake up the presidential race. Now WikiLeaks' Julian Assange has canceled a much-anticipated announcement citing security concerns. Chief Intelligence Correspondent Kaine has more on this and new information on those immunity deals for top aides. You're very busy today, Catherine.
Well, thank you, Melissa. This letter from the Republican chairman of the House Judiciary Committee to the Attorney General says that the immunity deals for two top Clinton aides included the destruction of their laptop computers after the FBI review was complete. And just last week, one lawmaker pressed Director Comey on why no grand jury was called to collect evidence, including those laptops.
It would have been much simpler, and you would have had more authority to make these witnesses testify. Not the target, but the witness testify.
In my experience, you can often do things faster with informal agreements, especially when you're interacting with lawyers. In this particular investigation, the investigative team really wanted to get access to the laptops that were used to sort these emails.
What we've learned since that hearing is that the immunity deals for Clinton attorneys Cheryl Mills and Heather Samuelson were granted by the Justice Department in June, 1 month before the FBI closed its criminal investigation, and in exchange for access to their laptops. The two lawyers who decided which emails could be destroyed were shielded from prosecution for obstructing justice. In the letter, Chairman Goodlatte questions why the FBI agreed to destroy their laptop computers because of the impact on outstanding congressional investigations, and he questions why investigators agreed, quote, to limit their search of the Mills and Samuelson laptops to a date no later than January 31st, 2015, and therefore give up any opportunity to find evidence related to the destruction of evidence or obstruction of justice. And the leading national defense attorney just told Fox News that what's also very odd about this situation is that once classified government records are found on a computer, that computer is considered government property, and that was the case with Mills and also Samuelson's laptops. So why the government needed to do an immunity deal to get devices that in the end were already government property is just another confusing element of this story.
Wow. I mean, that's amazing. Catherine Herridge, thank you so much for that report.
You're welcome.
Good stuff. Tomorrow night, all eyes on the VP candidates when Tim Kaine and Mike Pence face off in their one and only debate. How much we can expect them to reach out to voters, not swayed by the top of the tickets. Mike Pence and Tim Kaine take the spotlight this week as the vice presidential candidates face off in their one and only debate. We have Fox team coverage. Jennifer Griffin is on the Clinton-Kaine campaign, but we're going to begin with Carl Cameron, who is live in Farmville, Virginia. So, Carl, how has Governor Pence been preparing for tonight?
Vigorously. His aides like to say that from the moment he accepted the running mate's slot in Donald Trump's ticket, that he knew that there would be two important days. One, his convention speech, which of course is off of a teleprompter and he doesn't have to face any questions or any lip from an opponent. And tomorrow night, the vice presidential debate. It's a one-time off. It'll be the biggest audience he's ever had in his political life. And his preparation for it has included a sparring partner, Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker, who were told behind closed doors in one of those sessions, then they do go the full 90 minutes, and he's been doing them almost daily. At one point, Pence said, well, I'm glad I'm not debating Scott Walker. So apparently, Walker threw a few spitballs at him. There will certainly be plenty of them tomorrow. And one of the things that Mike Pence realizes he has to do is he has to advance Donald Trump's agenda, the policy. And there's been a lot more name-calling than there's been policy in the Trump campaign. And Trump, long ago in his own political career, said he would never get personal and never do personal attacks in American politics, which certainly Donald Trump at the top of the ticket has not been reluctant to do. Don't expect a lot of that. Pence will use policy. When he's asked about some of Trump's statements that have been rhetorically incendiary, he will say, well, what he was discussing was, for instance, immigration, or he was discussing trade. And his criticism of Hillary Clinton will then be Trump's criticism of Hillary Clinton will then be repeated by Mike Pence, but perhaps not with the same degree of name-calling. There's a lot riding on this. The vice presidential campaign the vice presidential candidate is always number 2 in succession, and both Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton are older candidates than the country has seen in a long, long time. And there's also the issue of the Senate, because it's in play, and the vice president says has the deciding vote when there are tied votes in the Senate. And if it's Mike Pence, the conservative agenda and Donald Trump's gets advanced. Obviously, if it's Tim Kaine, from the Pence perspective, that's no help at all.
Good stuff. All reasons to watch. Campaign Carl Cameron, thank you so much. Our team coverage continues with Jennifer Griffin, who is also live in Farmville, Virginia. Jennifer, how is Senator Kaine preparing for the debate tomorrow night?
Well, Melissa, he's taking a page from his running mate's book. He's doing a lot of mock debate sessions. Standing in for on the other side is Bob Barnett, a Washington lawyer who has done this for many years for the Clinton campaign. He's taken a few days off the campaign trail for that prep. Now, Kaine has an avowed nice guy image. He has called himself boring on more than one occasion, but this debate tomorrow night is not really between Tim Kaine and Mike Pence and what they stand for. This is about who can smear the top of the ticket. Kaine will come out swinging, likely, about Trump apparently not paying taxes for 18 years. He'll focus on his business failures, 6 bankruptcies, and detailed accounts of small business owners that the campaign has been bringing out on the campaign trail, saying that they had not been paid by Donald Trump. Pence, for his part, won't focus as much on Tim Kaine, who was widely respected in the Senate by his fellow Republicans, but he will hit him hard on Clinton's handling of classified information, private email servers. I would be surprised if he brought up Bill Clinton's sexual past, given that he has shown no inclination to go there. In fact, it was Mike Pence who laid down the law, saying Jennifer Flowers would not be attending the last debate as the campaign's guest at the Hofstra debate. Melissa.
All right. Thank you so much for that. The debate tomorrow will give the VP nominees some much-needed face time. Recent polling shows that 16% of likely voters have never heard of Senator Tim Kaine. 12% don't know who Governor Mike Pence is. Oh, well. 21% have no opinion of Kaine. 14% have no opinion of Pence. Jessica Tarlov is a Democratic pollster and a senior political strategist for Schoen Consulting. Mercedes Schlapp is a GOP strategist and former spokesperson for President George W. Bush. Thanks to both of you for joining us. Yeah. Jessica, this debate might actually have some substance. These candidates might get down and really talk about the issues. It's a lot less about style. Am I right to hope for this?
No, you're not at all, and I think this is what Americans, or Americans who know that it's happening tomorrow night, are hoping for as well. We've heard a lot of people say, oh, let's just talk about the issues, and now you might get your chance. It'll probably be a little bit less interesting, obviously. No one on the stage will be as colorful as Donald Trump. But I think that we are going to hear about the policies. We're going to hear about records. We're going to hear about, causes that both of these men have fought for through their entire careers.
Mercedes, Mike Pence, he's a very funny guy. Do we have that soundbite? I like when he came out, he introduced himself. Well, he's funny in spite of himself. Let me show you what I mean.
It's a long way from Indiana to New York City. Really. I mean, I like to tell people, he's charismatic, bigger than life, interesting, and then there's, me. Kind of balance the ticket.
90 minutes on stage. There's going to be a great opportunity for the American public to see if this guy can tell the truth. I mean, or maybe if he recognizes the truth.
Okay, so setting aside that a lot of people don't know who those two guys are, when they see them come out, Mercedes, Mike Pence, he's self-effacing, which is not something we've seen a lot of in this campaign. He's likable, another thing that the headliners really miss. Could be interesting to get to know him more.
Well, I have to tell you, in conservative circles, Mike Pence is viewed as he's Reagan-esque. He's just such a strong communicator. He understands how to talk about economic issues, national security. In Indiana alone, he was able to reduce the unemployment rate by more than half. So I really think that Pence has an opportunity to connect to the ordinary American out there, to talk about Trump's economic and national security vision for America. And I think it gives Mike Pence an opportunity to almost reset a bit the campaign after we saw just a very bad week last week for Donald Trump. And let me tell you, this goes back to 2012 when Biden and Ryan had their vice presidential debate. It was Biden who really was able to help President Obama, who really had a very poor first debate against Mitt Romney.
Yeah. Jessica, Tim Kaine is a guy they like to say he's never lost an election. I bet we're going to see the reason why.
Yeah, no, I think so. He's a very skilled politician, but he's also a really genuine guy. As you mentioned in the introduction, nobody dislikes Tim Kaine. I remember the day that it came out that he was going to be VP. I believe it was Jeff Flake tweeted, you know, trying to think of something mean to say about this guy, but I just can't. Congratulations to Tim Kaine. So you're going to see that. I think he may speak in Spanish a little bit, talk about his son's military service. To Mercedes' point, conservatives do love Mike Pence for obvious reasons, but I think Tim Kaine's going to be hitting him on a lot of those issues, the conservative agenda points, the Religious Freedom Restoration Act specifically, talking about how anti-choice he's been, anti-Planned Parenthood, doesn't want to raise the minimum wage and issues like that. But that will help enormously to shore up conservatives.
So wait, hang on. Before we devolve into this, let me ask you, Mercedes, when one of them gets out there and they express an opinion or a stance, is it right to assume that that is the position for the whole ticket? Is that fair? Because there's a lot of distance between Mike Pence and Donald Trump on a normal day.
Well, I think for Mike Pence, his job is to support Donald Trump's vision. I think they're very much in line about the fact of tax reform, cutting taxes, cutting regulations, which we know are strangling businesses. And so it gives an opportunity to talk about how are we going to create economic growth in America. I think you're going to see more of a substantive policy in talk, basically. You're also going to be talking about trade. So I think for the question for Tim Kaine is that he supports this he increased taxes while he was Virginian governor over, $4 billion. He's going to have to defend himself on this big tax, big spending, extreme type of policy, and really just very much cozy with the Wall Street.
I don't think that's
we gotta go. You both answered twice. It was fair and balanced. Thank you for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Melissa.
All right. The first Monday in October, and the surprise court deal, and the Supreme Court deals with some high-profile cases as the new term begins. Will an empty seat on the bench have an impact?
Shepard Smith on the Fox News deck. Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump both on defense today. For Trump, it's about his tax returns and his charity. For Clinton, a recording in which she talks about Bernie Sanders' supporters. We'll look at how their teams are dealing with the fallout. Plus, we'll talk to an analyst who says a lack of loyalty for each candidate means some polls are actually getting it all wrong, and that the race could change a whole lot down the home stretch. The details coming up on Shepard Smith Reporting. Top of the hour. See you then.
The Supreme Court is back in session, still down one justice after the death of Antonin Scalia. Arguments are scheduled to start tomorrow with several important cases coming up. The question is, how will an 8-justice court impact the rulings? Lise Reel is a Fox News legal analyst, and David Bruno is a criminal defense attorney. Thanks to both of you for joining us.
Thanks, Melissa.
David, let me start with you. So the first case that we're talking about that they're looking at deals with Trinity Lutheran Church of Columbia versus Pauley, and they're talking about whether or not they can take state funds to refurbish their playground, right? Separation of church and state. How has this gone all the way to the Supreme Court?
Well, it's an equal protection issue. Just to start, this is a 4-4 court split.
Right.
Without the nomination and the appointment, we're going to see some deadlock in these cases, and we already have last year. In this specific case, it's pretty interesting because generally speaking, states can prohibit the use of funds for religious institutions, specific reasons. However, in this case, it is a schoolyard, and the church wants to put rubber floors down.
Yeah, everybody who has kids has been through this, and in fact, my kids were at a parochial school and faced a similar thing, who you can and can't take funds from. It does seem, unfortunately, pretty straightforward for the school, though. They can't take the funds. What's the argument?
What's really interesting to me on this case is if you've got the First Amendment clashing, right? You've got the Establishment Clause, which says exactly that. You can't have the government getting involved. But you've also got free speech. So you've got two parts, free speech being on the part of the church, which says, wait a second, you're really having an impact on our free speech to say we can't express our free speech. So you've got First Amendment. To me, that's sort of the interesting part of the argument, First Amendment clashing, because by not giving them the funds, the church can say, well, you're tampering down on our First Amendment rights. But if this comes down to a 4-4 split, which it very well might, the lower court ruling will stand, which means that they will not get their funding.
Wow. Okay. The second case we were looking at, McCrory versus Harris, this was about congressional districts. I mean, this is always a hot button issue, very political.
Yeah. And actually, the court decided a very similar case last year out of Alabama, and that particular decision was 5-4. Now, Justice Kennedy is a Republican, so we talk about this 4-4 split, Republican versus Democrat. However, Justice Kennedy sides with the liberals on occasion, and in this particular case last year, Justice Kennedy did in fact. So since we've lost Scalia, it looks as if there's not going to be any changes here. They are going to side with the liberal court, and this is going to be affirmed. It's going to be struck down.
And remember, the lower court held in this case that what they had done was unconstitutional. So if the lower court ruling holds in this case, what happened was unconstitutional. Now, it will not have an impact on this election, and I think that's key to note, but other states are going to be looking at this to see what happens going forward. So it will not have an impact on this election, but if the lower court, and again, getting back to the point is, you know, because we don't have a ninth Supreme Court justice in there, it will be held to be unconstitutional.
I want to get to the last one before we run out of time, because this one is right in my home court. In 2012, a jury trial awarded Apple $1 billion. That was a reduction, by the way, for patent infringement. Samsung wants damages limited to the value of components at issue. Apple wants damages for the full value of the Samsung products.
And this isn't about whether or not the patent has been infringed. A jury has decided that the patent has been infringed. It's all about the money, Melissa, which of course you're the expert on, and whether or not the actual damages will be will stay at that level or
all the way to the Supreme Court. This seems like an odd
surprised.
One.
I'm surprised as well. I mean, it's really dealing with the interpretation of the 1886 patent law. In that patent law, it says that a victim is entitled to the full profit. Well, Samsung's saying, no, it only dealt with a portion of our profits. We shouldn't have to pay for all of the profits, just portions.
Interesting. All right, guys, thank you so much. Interesting times in the Supreme Court. The head of WikiLeaks now making a change in what was being billed as a potential October surprise in the upcoming election, citing, quote, specific information. Julian Assange is moving a planned announcement from the balcony of the Ecuadorian embassy in London to Berlin. It is now scheduled for 3 a.m. Eastern time. Assange claims as Secretary of State Hillary Clinton joked about using a drone to silence his organization at the height of the WikiLeaks scandals. Assange has alluded to a document dump that could harm Clinton's chances of winning. The suspense is building. We'll know soon, I guess. All right, a Kanye West concert ends abruptly when he gets an emergency call about his wife, Kim Kardashian. The violent holdup that left the reality star shaken up and $10 million poorer. The highly organized robbery that's got investigators on the hunt. Frightening moments for Kim Kardashian, who was robbed at gunpoint in Paris last night. A spokesperson says the reality star is shaken up but wasn't hurt after the robbers, reportedly disguised as cops, got away with $10 million worth of jewelry. Her husband, Kanye West, making a quick exit from his concert in New York City. Watch this.
I'm sorry, there's a family emergency. I have to stop the show. Whoa.
Adam Housley is live in Los Angeles with the latest. Adam, do they have any suspects?
Well, I mean, French police, there's already maybe some little disagreement, in fact. You know, French police say there were 5 assailants, but there's been now reports out saying there were 2. They do say they've obviously interviewed Kim Kardashian as well as some other people around the hotel. They won't obviously get specific about that. They're also not getting specific about whether or not they have any suspects. But if you talk to anybody who has any kind of law enforcement background, they'll tell you this is very likely an inside job. Although, keep in mind, as we know, Kim Kardashian posts all over social media. It was all over social media where she was for Fashion Week. She also had a lot of jewelry on in some of those photos. So at this hour, there's a little bit of disagreement whether there was 5 assailants or 2 assailants. We do know, of course, that she was tied. She was tied up, and they took about $11.5 million all told in jewelry, counting the ring, which is obviously a very large amount, and has French authorities, with the nature of this, of course, as well, very concerned about what happened.
Yeah, I would bet. And she's reportedly back in New York now, right?
Right. So Kanye West was in New York. Her kids were in New York. Her sisters actually were there with her, but not in the hotel. In fact, she'd had dinner at a famous designer's home and had returned, we're told, back to this hotel, which sounds like it's one of those private hotels, very high-end, usually not even marked. Her sisters reportedly were still out at a club with security, which would explain why she was back at that hotel. Other actors, of course, are speaking out, very concerned about what happened. Many of them go to Paris, including Salma Hayek, who spends a lot of time there. She talked about the fact that she doesn't bring jewelry just for that notion. Take a listen.
I know it's terrible, but thank God she's okay. Thank God she's okay. That's the only thing I can say, because it could have been worse. So that's the good news, and thank God her little girl was not here. So these are I know it's horrific, but at least there were some good points in it, that the little girl was not here and that she's fine.
Of course, a lot of details still yet to emerge, Melissa. We're getting a lot of good information. In fact, FoxNews.com is doing some great investigation on this as well. But again, she's back in New York, safe and sound, after flying on a private jet. And we'll keep you updated, of course, on the investigation into an $11.5 million heist. Crazy.
And details changing around it, you say. Interesting. We'll stay on top of this. Adam Housley, thanks so much. A rough landing caught on camera at Birmingham International Airport in England. The pilot trying to put this Airbus A321 on the ground in the middle of strong crosswinds. Watch this. The first attempt aborted. The plane circles the airport and comes back in to try it again. The second time, here we go. Whew, the pilot puts it down. It is a bumpy landing. Look at that. Everyone made it safely to the terminal. No one was hurt. No word on how soon people will be getting back on planes after this rough ride. Wow. Woo, scary stuff. Watch it one more time. We'll be right back. Here's what America's clicking on today. The world-famous balloon festival in Albuquerque, New Mexico, canceling today's launches due to wind. This after 2 balloons hit power lines yesterday. Yikes! We are told no one was hurt, though, luckily. And meet the pet that fits in the palm of your hand. Toyota's new Kurobo Mini. It's a robot, and it is capable of having casual conversations, remembering past events, and reacting to user emotions. That's a little bit scary. I'm Melissa Francis, and here's Shep.